Hello, everyone. Welcome to the King's virtual open house session. Today we have Dr. Sally and Caitlin with us today to tell us more about our Childhood and Social Institutions program at King's. So first, we're going to have a brief presentation, and then afterwards, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation or during the Q&A session, please feel free to submit them through the chat function. So without further ado, Dr. Sally, over to you.
Thank you very much. It's great to see you all virtually. And I want to just give you a short PowerPoint presentation, which will briefly outline some of the things that we do in CSI. And it contains a video that I'm going to show as well about what some of our grads do on after they've completed their degree. So Caitlin, who is with me today, she's been a student. She's been in my classes for 3 years now, and she's been working alongside me on several projects, and she's one of our best students at King's right now, and she'll have a lot to say, I'm sure, if you've got any questions for her later on. So here's an image of our core faculty. There's me up in the top corner, Dr. Sam Frankel, who's from England and we're very fortunate to have at King's. He's our expert in advocacy. Dr. Patrick Ryan is a historian specialising in childhood. And Dr. Rachel Birnbaum is a social worker who specialises in children's participation in family law. So she runs some classes on our Justice Certificate. A couple of resources for you here. We have the King's website has the CSI page, which lists all of our courses and course outlines, checklists and so on. And then we also have a page on Facebook, which is the Childhood and Social Institutions page, which you can search for and join. And on there, I usually post any news or items of interest for students. I just want to give you a quick overview of the programme. So you can either take a major or an honours specialisation in CSI. We don't offer a minor. For the major, students are required to have 6.0 credits. That's 12 courses overall in CSI. 3 of those are base requirements, core requirements that everybody has to take. We then have a selection of approved courses or advanced courses that you can choose from. And in addition, you can choose from one of the 3 streams that we focus our programme around: children's advocacy and rights, policy, law and history as it relates to children and childhood, and children's everyday lives. So it gives you the opportunity to specialise if you wish to. If you take the honours programme, that's 9.0 credits, and the base programme is very much like the major. The difference is that you take more courses and you take more at the senior level than majors would do. You also get the opportunity to work with faculty one-on-one if you wanted to do a senior project in your 4th year. And Caitlin will be able to tell you something about that because she's actually been studying 2 independent studies with faculty this year. We also offer 2 certificates which you can add on to your degree, one in childhood and the legal system and one in child advocacy. So these will be shown on your transcript as a certificate, and what it shows to employers is that you've specialised in a particular area. So this is different from choosing your stream through the major or through the HSP, but it actually gives you more depth in terms of what you've studied. Here are some courses which we've just introduced over the last few months. The 2nd year course, Introduction to Childhood Advocacy, benefits students who want to specialise in child advocacy. It gives them that basic knowledge that they need. International Children's Rights in Practice, it kind of does what it says on the tin. It looks at children's rights internationally and how those actually play out in everyday life. Thirdly, another new course is Children and Media, where we look at how children and childhood have been represented in media. Professor Ryan runs a Childhood in Canadian History course, and Professor Frankel will be teaching a childhood peer relations and play course. Most of these are either second or third year level courses. Just a little bit about what we don't do in CSI. We're not going to try and train you how to raise children. We're not going to train you how to be a teacher explicitly, although sometimes we might talk about children and education. And we're not training people to work in early childhood settings. However, CSI students, graduates, quite often go on to work in education after graduation. So what we're actually about is about looking at and understanding childhood from children's point of view. We want to challenge your assumptions about childhood and the child. We look at children in a range of social institutions in society, so in the family, in the legal system, in the health system, and so on. In a way, I think I like to characterise it as we explore the politics of childhood. That's what we're about. Through doing that, we're showing how important it is to take into account the child's perspective and to show how not only does society shape childhood, but children can actually act back on that structure. It lets us look at power. Who has power over children? And can children exercise power back? And generally to understand how childhood is socially, culturally, and historically constructed. We have a couple of really exciting opportunities in our programme. Every spring, apart from this year, unfortunately, because of COVID, we travel off. In fact, we should have been leaving for Sweden today. We run exchange visits to Sweden and the UK to study at universities there. It's a half course, so it's roughly 3 weeks where you would have the overseas students come here for a week and study with you, and then you go over to Sweden or the UK and study with them. It's about looking at how the two cultures differ or might be similar in relation to childhood within each country. And generally the enrolment is quite competitive. We can only take around 8 students to Sweden. We can usually take a few more to the UK, but it tends to be quite a competitive entry to that particular course. We run a CSI club, or rather the students run a CSI club, which gives you opportunities to meet with other students, to network, to do some volunteer work. They often run fundraising events and social events. So it's worth, once you are at King's, looking at the clubs and seeing how you might want to be involved. We always need at least, I think, 8 students to be on the committees, so there's plenty of opportunity to be involved there. People always ask, what can I do with a CSI degree? Well, pretty much you can do whatever degree, do the same thing as whatever other degree you might want to think about. Having an undergraduate degree shows your employer that you are able to study to a particular level and that you can apply yourself. So as I've said, many of our students go into education once they graduate. But we've also had students, currently we've got one student who works in the Library of Parliament in Ottawa. One works as a behavioural consultant working with children with ADHD. Students have gone into human resources, into community work. So I'm thinking in particular of a student who moved to Toronto and works with children and young people who've been part of the justice system in one way or another. And increasingly our students are going on to study at postgraduate level to do a master's or a PhD. So finally, I just want to show you a short video that we filmed. This time last year, we had our 20th anniversary of teaching CSI at King's. And as part of that, we recorded some former students talking about their working lives and how the CSI degree has really played into what it is that they do. So I'd just like to show you that. and then we'll be open for questions.
Childhood and Social Institutions helped produce for me a value system that I think helps advocate for my clients, which are children from birth to the age of 18.
I hope to become an Office of the Children's Lawyer and paneled lawyer so that I can represent children's voices directly. And I also would like to make a push legislatively and in terms of policy towards increasing children's voices in the courtroom.
So when I first read the new kindergarten curriculum, I was super excited. This was all stuff that I had learned in the Childhood and Social Institutions program. I had learned that children were competent, capable learners. I had learned that they were capable of more than just sitting there and listening to information, that they could do their own learning if given the opportunities to do so.
Make it a priority in your work life and your personal life to validate children's voices and empower the folks around them to help amplify their message.
Those are three of our grads, and one of them's just finished law school, and she's now working with a firm of solicitors in London. The other one, as you will have heard her say, is working on in kindergarten schools, and one is working as a social worker. So he did 2 years CSI and then transferred into the social work program, which is quite often what students will do. So CSI is really helpful for that kind of background information when you're thinking about social work. So I'll stop sharing the screen, and if you've got any questions, then please put them in the chat, and Aziz, who is hosting the session, will communicate those questions to me and Caitlin.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sally. So again, as Dr. Sally said, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat function. While we wait for questions, Dr. Sally, would it be okay for Caitlin to share her experience at King's?
Absolutely. Well, Caitlin, over to you.
Yeah, of course. Hello, I'm a 4th year student at King's taking Childhood and Social Institutions. I originally started out wanting to look at social work and was persuaded, wasn't really persuaded. I fell in love with the literature and the material I was learning, and found that it suited me more than social work when I was finishing my first year. So that started my journey. I'm an honors specialization student in the Childhood and Social Institution program. So I take the senior level courses, and Professor McNamee made a comment saying that I did 2 independent studies this year, which were really fun. Got to look at 2 specific topics that not only are my future interests, looking at postgraduate, graduate studies, but also suited my supervisor's interests as well. So that was really great having one-on-one connection. And I think that's what makes King's specifically really special, is the smaller community that you have usually provides you with the ability to make stronger relationships with your professors. I guess I could talk maybe a little bit, if we don't have any questions right now, about my experience. I'm not sure. What are you thinking? Yeah, perfect. So I got involved in some extracurriculars when I was in my 2nd year. I took an events planning job on the student council, which was a lot of fun. Learned a lot about budgets. Didn't realize that was so important. My 3rd year, I got involved with the CSI club, looking at running events and organizing with different clubs. And then my 4th year, I became the student representative for the program on student council. So I got to be a part of the hiring committee, which was really cool. Long days, like 8-hour days, looking at new hires and what it takes if you're coming from finishing a PhD, trying to get a job as a professor. Also getting to vocalize my opinion and have it be taken seriously is really great. Something that I think bigger institutions that have like 40,000 students probably don't provide as much opportunity for. And also making a lot of new friends on student council was really great. I lived off campus my first year of university. I obviously live off campus still now, but because King's is so small, and the ability to meet so many new people through clubs and being on student council in the smaller classrooms didn't make it difficult at all to meet a lot of people, which was really great. Definitely missing the social interactions due to our current circumstances of society, Missing my professors the most, probably, considering during the school year, I spend 98% of my time at the library. It's not a joke. I should have a plaque on a cubicle. I swear, I live in that place. But yeah, that's about all
I should
about
also
me right
say
now.
that Caitlin has, for the last 2 years, been working as a teaching assistant on our first and second year courses. Not all of them, but specifically the Introduction to CSI class that everybody takes in first year. So Caitlin runs a tutorial group in that, and she's been invaluable. So we often have third and fourth year students contributing to our teaching as well as learning with us. Sorry, just wanted to point out.
Yeah, no, it's a really good experience. I didn't know bigger institutions don't usually provide a lot of opportunities for employment. King's is really great with having students get jobs and furthering your progression, not only in challenging students, learning how to provide literature and explain to first year students, but providing jobs for other things as well, working at the library. A lot of my friends do that. I'm kind of jealous since I spend so much time there. I should work there, but
So, Caitlin, can you tell us how how do you manage your extracurricular activities and also your academic, responsibilities?
yeah, for sure. I am a full-time student, and I'm involved in clubs and student council. For a period of time, I had 3 jobs outside of being at school and the extracurriculars. I find managing my time is best by making a schedule. And those schedules for me right now mean getting up really early in the morning and getting to the library for like 7 a.m. But sticking to the schedule. So, and not being upset if you don't get everything done that you want to in that schedule, just means that you're gonna have to find some time somewhere else in there. Whether that's like a 20-minute time space you have between a class, means sitting down somewhere and just typing something out really quickly. I find even when I end my day, writing down like random thoughts I've had, like I'm like, oh, this could help contribute to something else. But managing your time by making a schedule and sticking to the schedule. Personal life is really important. So finding times that work best during your studying habits and catering around your personal life. Study habits are really great, especially when it comes to times. So know where you study best, what time that's usually at. And don't be too harsh on yourself if you need to take breaks between studyings. You don't want to overwhelm yourself too much.
Perfect. Thank you, Caitlin. So I have a question for Dr. Sally. So there's a question from a student asking if you recommend CSI if they want to pursue a career in teaching?
Yes, we do. Although we're not going to teach you how to teach, we are going to teach you about children's perspectives on things like education, on things like the family and the school. So while you're not learning how to be a teacher, you are learning quite a lot about childhood, which I think is important if you're going into education. You need to know something about childhood. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Sally. What are the required courses in first year for CSI?
We only have one, and that's the CSI 1025. It runs in the fall and in the winter term, so you can sign up for either. And that's the only first year required course in CSI. So that allows you to choose a range of other options from different programs across King's. And that's something I really recommend, because I think you should try as many as you can and see what it is you love, and what you fall, as Caitlin said, what you fall in love with should be the thing that you go on to study, because there's nothing worse than studying something for 3 years and then realizing you actually hate it. So yeah, and I'm pretty confident that people will choose CSI. They often do.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sally. And I also have another question.
Sure.
Would you recommend this program for somebody who's interested in a career in child and youth therapy?
We don't focus on therapy. You would need to, I think, study social work to be able to do that. But again, it gives you that broad background about issues that are relevant to children's lives. So CSI will give you that basic understanding that you can then go on and apply in whatever career path you choose. So, yeah.
Perfect, Dr. Sally. I also have another question. You've mentioned some experiential learning trips.
Yeah.
Could you expand a little bit more on that?
Sure. So we go to, the one I tend to go to every year is almost every year, is the trip to Sweden. So that started up about 10 or 11 years ago now. And 2 faculty members from Malmö University in Sweden will come over to King's with 8 of their students. They stay in the res and they just come to class, and then in the morning and then usually in the afternoon, they'll do social things with our students, or we'll take them on visits. It usually ends on a Friday afternoon with a trip to Niagara, and which the Swedish students always love. Then we have a kind of a week's break in the middle, and then we all get on the same plane and go to Copenhagen. From Copenhagen, we take a short train ride to Malmö in Sweden, and we do the same thing there. So a week's study, classes every day, social occasions, and touring around in the afternoons and evenings. And usually the assessment for that is to write a reflective diary about how you've experienced it. The UK exchange runs in exactly the same format, but the institution they go to is mostly Institute of Education. So they're studying with people who are going to go into, actually Malmö is also, in Malmö they're usually trainee kindergarten teachers, and in the UK they're trainee teachers. So those are the kind of people that students would mix with.
Thank you, Dr. Sally. I also have a question to follow up with the experiential learning.
Yeah.
Students are wondering, is there an average that students have to maintain to go on these trips?
No, generally it depends how many students we get applying. So if we only had 8 apply, then you're a shoo-in. If we had 28 apply, then we would have to do some kind of rationale for admitting people. And generally it goes on seniority. So we will usually give 4th year students the option before anybody else, because they're going to graduate and it might be their last chance to go. And after that, we would be looking at ranking their average over the previous year. So, I mean, the average for a major to stay in the major in CSI is 60, I think, Caitlin. So we're pretty much looking at between 60 and 85, say.
And do you know, like, if there's a cost for the trip and if the King's experiential learning bursaries would cover part of it?
Absolutely. So currently students get $1,000 as a bursary from King's, which pretty much, if you go into Sweden, pays for your flight there and back. If you do the Swedish exchange, the accommodation is paid for by Sweden, and 2 meals a day are paid for by the Swedish university. So all you've really got to do is have 1 meal a day and anything you want to spend other than that. Slightly different in the UK, because we have a reciprocal arrangement with the Malmö University in Sweden. So we pay for their students when they're at King's, they pay for ours when we're in Sweden. In the UK exchange, that's not the same. So you still get your travel bursary of $1,000, but you pay for your own accommodation and your own food. Caitlin actually did that trip, was it last year?
Yeah, I went last year. In 3 days, I would have been on a flight.
Yeah.
Yes, I went last year. And yeah, you do have to pay for your accommodations and you do pay for food, but totally worth it. You also get I think it's $1,000, it was last year, the bursary to go, which does pay for your flights and does pay for a portion of your accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Caitlin, I actually have a question for you now. There's a question from a student and it says, what are the courses that you've taken and which one had the greatest impact on you?
One of mine, obviously.
Yeah, actually it was. There's so many. I've taken almost all the CSI courses. I am in honor specialization, so I have to take the 9.0, which I think works out to being 18 courses.
Yep.
Don't quote me on that. Yeah. Okay, great. I really enjoyed my third year course, which was with Professor McNamee, which inspired me to do the independent studies in my fourth year on researching childhood, which kind of takes you through the process of creating a research proposal, this introduction. So you get to pick your own research topic at this time. I'm not sure if it's still like that for the third year students, but it was when I took it. You had to pick your own research topic, which was really great because sometimes when you're in a class, even though you like the program as a whole, you like the material, it's already dictated, it's kind of catered to you, like where you, in this class, you get to cater to yourself. So you have to pick your own research topic, go through methodology, which some people don't like. I loved it. And then you go through actually how you want to like collect data and how you engage, and you review a lot of literature. University is a lot of reading, but trust me, it's fun reading. It's not all, it doesn't give you a headache always. It was just a lot of fun, my third year class. And it inspired me into my fourth year, and now after completing my 2 fourth year independent studies, kind of want to go on further in grad school and look at research. So it was probably my favorite class. And then my second year class with Professor Ryan was really great as well. I don't even remember what it was called at the time, but it had a lot to do with policy and law in childhood, and I really liked that as well. It was challenging, but it was really fun.
Caitlin, do you want to tell them about your independent study that you've just finished with me?
Yeah. My independent study I just finished was looking at, well, I'm kind of still looking at it now, but looking at migrant children's everyday life experiences with migration. So I originally looked at like random things like that literature would provide, trying to find gaps in literature, and then I started collecting information. I was realizing that these individuals who I had engaged with, their childhood experiences were very similar to what you'd assume would be replicated in an adult experience. And I really looked at challenging some dominant theoretical perspectives, such as like socialization theory, and looking at how really socialization theory often positions children as kind of incompetent, like that it's being done to them, but they're really active in their everyday lives with migration, and wasn't about assimilation. It was just about learning an environment, which is also something I learned is not the same. So difficult, but really fun, really fun. Sad that it's kind of coming to an end, but.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Caitlin. While you were explaining your independent study, I got a question also for you, asking you, what is your plans after you graduate?
Yeah, so my plan, I'm coming back for next year because I'm not 100% sure what I want to do. I don't necessarily love our welfare state. I want to go into social work originally, but I don't like the welfare state, but I'm kind of toying with this idea of going into social work and then doing a PhD in childhood studies. However, I'm also looking at a master's now in childhood studies over in the UK, and there is a program here in Canada for graduate studies at Brock. However, it does have a bit of a psychological background, which is something that we don't always talk about in CSI. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in the upcoming months when I have to start applying.
Thank you. And Dr. Sally, I have a question for you.
Yep.
Students are asking, what is your experience teaching at King's? What is your favorite parts about King's? What's your favorite course to teach, and so on?
Oh, wow. So one of I came to King's in 2006. I'd been teaching and researching childhood in the UK since 1993. I came over to King's because it was the only program in the world that does a 4-year program looking at childhood from our perspective. I believe it's still the only 4-year program in the world. There are increasingly, in Canada, I can think of a couple. There's an undergrad degree at Brock and there's one at Queen's, but they tend to be either about, at Queen's, for example, it's more about children's literacy. At Brock, it's a mixture of kind of the childhood in the way we look at it and psychology. So we're still the only one in Canada. So we're still unique. So that was the first thing, the uniqueness of the program. Having arrived here, once I found out what a double-double was, which took me a while, I kept standing behind people in line wondering what they were asking for. But anyway, and in fact, students explained to me what it was in class. What I was immediately struck by how nice the students were. So in the UK, if you saw a student in the street, they'd probably walk the other way. Here, I would come across students who were serving in a restaurant, for example, and they'll be, oh, you're my prof, and they'd be all excited. They'd walk past you on campus and always say hi or come up and talk to you. I think that really, I love that about being at King's. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my time teaching at King's. I'm actually retiring at the end of next month, and we'll have a new and wonderful professor on faculty by then. But what I want to say is that the best thing for me has been generally the students. Sometimes the students are the worst thing as well, but generally they're the best thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sally. That was great. At this point, we don't have any further questions.
Okay.
So I'm just going to turn it back to you for the final piece of advice for our future students, and it was also for Caitlin.
Yeah, okay. So my advice is to get to know us. So whether we're on campus or not in the fall, we're available, and we're always available. I will sometimes answer emails at midnight, quite often, but we're only an email away. So get to know us. We love to get to know you. Get to know us, find out from us how you can best study, and we will be able to help you with all kinds of issues that you might have. Just let us know who you are. Come and talk to us. We love to see you. That's pretty much it. Caitlin might have some more student-centered advice.
From a student perspective, agreeing if either we're online or we're not, and also for being a teaching assistant, yeah, email us. It's part of our job, and also it helps you. Like if you're stuck reading something and you don't understand and you're reading it over and over again, and you're like, oh, like I don't want to email us, because we could explain it probably in like less than 5 sentences, and then it gives you complete clarity. You're not stressed, and then you don't mix up anything on an assignment. Always, like when we're on campus, I always tell students, I'm like, utilize office hours. They're there for a reason. Go in, even though some professors will be like, oh, I'm trying to do some work, just go and bother them with your questions, because questions are always great.
Yeah. And also take advantage of your fellow CSI students, the more senior students. They can put you right all of the time.
That's true as well, yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sally. Thank you, Caitlin, for your amazing informative session. And I would also like to thank everybody who's attending this session for taking the time and being here with us today. If you have any further questions that we haven't answered through the session, please feel free to email us at kings@uwo.ca. And then if you have any questions for Dr. Sally or for Caitlin, please feel free to send them to kings@uwo.ca as well, and I will make sure to forward them to them as well. Again, thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you in person in campus soon, hopefully.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.